This may not be up to the billing. I enjoyed myself immensely in Monterrey this February. Richard is one of the few people whose first language is not Czech who can pronounce my first name. And I loved not my academic colleagues in Monterrey because I deal with them all the time, but I love the Raspini brothers, you know, juggling and Hazel Miller singing. But I'm a different mood. I've traveled too much since February. I'm in a very pensive sort of, you know, retiring mood, and so I don't feel very exuberant. And I thought that I will sort of throw out maybe like 5 or 6 topics and have the audience voting on which one they want me to present. But after listening to a number of speakers, I decided not to do so. And this will be more sort of reactive because I heard some things which I sort of violently disagreed with. So I asked Richard if it's okay just to react. But I will react in sort of a more or less coherent fashion. I want to tell you about science. Everything you see around you is the result of science. We are the most scientific society in the world, but dumbest society in the world just as well. Several points. Science is the ultimate cooperative enterprise. I'll expand on it. I have about 3 minutes per topic. Second, science is hard to do. Science is not fun. Everything in North America is fun. Science is not fun. The third thing, as a result of it, we don't do a good job, and science is a black box. Most people have no idea. Just simply, it's in and out, but what's in there, people don't know. This leads to a loss of context, a loss of perspective, which is terrible because the final outcome of it is that the greatest loss of context and perspective is that we are abusing the only planet we have, and this cannot go on forever. Okay, let's expand on these topics. As the ultimate cooperative enterprise, we have, you know, you heard about Einstein or whatever is parietal lobes or not. We just love these people who are first and biggest, these big hunches of science. They get these Nobel Prizes. It just makes no sense. Science is like a big relay race, except it's not 4 times 100 or 4 times 200 meters. It's endless. It goes forever, and millions of people are participating. Some of those people are lucky enough to run across that imaginary line, be the ones to synthesize that particular drug the first time, be the ones who finally formulate that seemingly eternal law, which 50 years later will be overturned because science never stands still. That's all what's to it. The Nobel Prize winners probably they are responsible for something like, or they are not responsible for 99% of the prize which they get. Oh, maybe 97, something like that really, right? But we are this media-driven society. We must have this first guy. It just simply doesn't make sense. I could make a nice lecture out of this, showing you the famous examples. Whatever, Darwin, right? Everybody knows Charles Darwin. He went around the world on Beagle. He was seasick most of the time. He hated actually this sea travel. And so he stayed on land as much as he could. And he comes back and he, you know, because he saw all these finches in Galapagos Islands, you know the story, he writes, there's this thing called evolution. Well, not quite so, you know, he was very rich. He married into Wedgwood family, the people who made the China, right? And so he didn't have to do anything. Most of his life, he was just simply sitting around and doing nothing. And it took him very long time to get down to this process of writing about evolution. Meanwhile, there's this guy Wallace from very poor family, this young laddie, you know, bumming in the jungles of what is today Indonesia, and he came up with that idea very well, and he sends this letter to Darwin saying, I've come up with this idea of evolution. What Darwin does, well, he rushes down, just simply scribbles it down very fast. He's been working on it for like 8 years, and he gets the priority. Every kid knows about Alexander Graham Bell inventing telephone. Elisha Gray filed at the US Patent Office 20 minutes later than A.G. Bell. Nobody knows about Gray, really, right? During the 1930s, there were these 2 guys, Pabst von Ohain in Germany and Frank Whittle. RAF never listened to Frank Whittle. Both of them were working on jet engine, on gas turbine put into plane. And they both invented total independent at the same time. The independent invention at the same time, down to 20-minute difference, very common in science. So, you know, I could spend several hours telling you about these things. Yet we have to have our alpha males, these Nobel winners, and especially, of course, if they are like Kary Mullis. Kary Mullis is the guy you probably know. How many people know Kary Mullis in this room? Kary Mullis is responsible for one of the greatest inventions of the 1980s. Mind you, if he would not have invented it, somebody else would have 6 months later or 6 years later. That's polymerase chain reaction, which is made possible when you kill somebody and you leave some little bit of blood somewhere, you know. So you take a very little sprinkling of the blood, and you go through PCR process, and you get convicted or not, as happened, you know, OJ cases, you know. So it's not a foolproof thing. Anyway, you know, the guy styles himself as a beach bum and surfs and has a different woman every other Tuesday or whatever. So media love it, right? So he was the most written up Nobel Prize winner of the past 20 years, but still you don't know him really. Science is like that, as I say, it's the ultimate cooperative enterprise. What matters is this long relay race, and individuals shouldn't matter. But of course, scientists are only human, so if you offer them $500,000 or $1 million and this price and that price, and shaking the hand of the Swedish king who is married to a German woman, well, they take it. It's a fact. It's a fact. It's a strange royal family. Science is hard to do. Oh, by the way, Einstein, I have to expand on Einstein. He was a very nasty guy. Today, he married Mileva Maric. She was a brilliant Serbian. She was the only female PhD student at IdeaCity Technische Hochschule in Zurich. And in his better moments, he credited her with making him the relativity theorist. There are feminist writers, feminist science writers out there who will tell you that it was her idea and basically he stole it. What happened, of course, that later he totally abandoned her. And as far as their only child daughter, he just simply dumped her. He never saw her for the rest of it, just dumped her. So today, if his wife would have gotten a good divorce lawyer, he would have been paying whatever, well, the Nobel Prize, when he got it, Nobel Prize wasn't much in 1919. That was small change. It's not like today. Anyway, he was a very unpleasant individual, but of course he wore no socks and he played violin, so he was sort of that makes it. But again, let me say the thing which people don't like to hear. If he would not have formulated the two theories of relativity, somebody else would have 5 months, 5 years later, not 50 years later. It's not like that. It's just always, a little delay somewhere. Science is hard to do. It's not fun. It's what Germans call Sitzfleisch. You have to sit on your ass and work very hard. Very few people are willing to do so. It's fun when you have some accomplishment, but for every one accomplishment, there are 99 or 999 failures. We don't do it very well. A friend of mine from National Science Foundation showed me this beautiful movie a couple of years ago. They went to Harvard right after the graduation ceremony. So you have these best and brightest of North America ready to start their $90,000 jobs with $75,000 signing bonus, right? And they just simply stuck microphone in their mouth and they asked them, what makes the seasons, right? And as one man and woman, all these best and brightest of this country know, oh, it's the distance from sun. In summer it's hottest because the earth is closest to the sun, right? There was one solitary girl out of about 70 people they asked who knew that is not the distance from the sun, but it's the tilt of the Earth's axis, something which I was taught in grade 3 in the country I went to grade school, but that's a different story. Now, as a result of it, scientific understanding is such a black box even for most scientists that it's just absolutely unbelievable. I mean, you go to departments of biology, and even there, very few people are confident explain, let's say, how the PCR reaction works, or what is the real difference between RNA and DNA, because he may be a biologist who studies whatever, he studies salmon, he doesn't care about RNA, DNA. The scientific illiteracy in our society is just mind-boggling. Over the years, I've developed a series of these tests, and if we would have time, I would distribute and grade this test, anything like whatever, How many legs do ants have? You get the answers anywhere from 4 to 12, How many of you are absolutely positive how many legs do ants have? Absolutely positive. How many of you are absolutely positive, okay? Well, that's less than 15% of the audience are positive that these critters have 6 legs, right? And it's anything between 4 and 12 goes. What is the most common element in the Earth's crust? I go out there, I'll be walking on the ground, okay? What will be the most common element in the Earth's crust? Does somebody know? No, of course not. Okay, it's oxygen. I'll let you on a big secret. It's oxygen, okay? You can ask me why afterwards, right? Basic stuff. This is not science. This is a pre-kindergarten common sense. People don't know these things, right? So forget about PCR, DNA, RNA, genomics, the string theory in physics. Now, there is excuse for this because it's so chopped up, it's so specialized, there is so much to know, of course, that nobody can know but about a small fraction of it. Still, this is not an excuse to be self-aggrandizing and outright sort of dumb about this. And this is what bugs me about this so-called technology, my pet peeve. Technos is being artful, being skillful in Greek, and logos is word. So technology is the science about how to do things in a clever way. Now, of course, course, languages shift. Long time ago, this meaning shifted to just simply applying science. So technology doesn't mean the science about technique, which it should, but it means applying science, and everything is the result of technology, this glass and this wall and everything. However, another shift has occurred recently, one which is totally indefensible, namely that you people, you computer types, internet guys, you talk about technology as only these infernal machines and as this software and as internet. A couple of days ago, I get this global mail, there is this special section just called technology, and inside there is only about web. Well, let me remind you that the most important pieces, most important techniques which made the difference of technologies, Chinese wheelbarrow. Chinese invented wheelbarrow. As a result of it, or partially as a result of it, China has been ahead of Europe until about 1750, much richer, much more prosperous, because wheelbarrow is a great way how to can carry things from A to B. Internal combustion engine has done much more than any internet ever will to the planet. X-rays also, and so on, so on. So there is any number of techniques there or technologies, and we should not restrict this term technology to shoving electrons around in software or in hard disk drives or wherever we shove them around. The loss of perspective is immense in the sense that people don't know what the most important things are. Let me ask you at least one more. What has been the most important invention of the 20th century? Let me hear it. Radio, television, computers. Air conditioning, right? Whatever else, right? You are all wrong, of course, okay? Penicillin, of course, you know, of course. We have 6 billion people on this planet. Half of them would not be here without that invention which you haven't named. That's the Haber-Bosch synthesis of ammonia, because there is a limited amount of nitrogen in the global ecosystem. And you would recycle every bit of manure, every bit of urine and feces. You would recycle every bit of crop stocks, everything organic which is recyclable to return nitrogen to soil. We could support about 3 billion people on this planet, okay? The other 3 billion people are supported by synthesizing nitrogen, by ripping up the nitrogen molecule from the air, splitting it in half because it occurs there is a dinitrogen, taking that single atomic nitrogen and marrying it with hydrogen, which we get in different ways, and synthesizing it together and making this very simple molecule, NH, which is called ammonia, which is the basis of all nitrogen fertilizers. Without that, half of the population of this planet wouldn't be here. There is no other technique, no other invention without which today there wouldn't be half of the people here. So by far the most important invention, most people are not simply even aware of it. Now, the loss of the contents and loss of the perspective is the worst one as far as the treatment of this only planet which we have is concerned. See, we have all this civilization, civilization which we have, has developed in extremely stable conditions. For the past 5,000 years, 6,000, 7,000 years, we've been pretty stable. Now, this is extremely the biosphere, the living sphere of the planet, which encompasses the whole atmosphere and the waters and the top of the Earth's crust, is a very resilient and self-repairing system. But it does flip. It's never stable. It changes. It goes up and down. Now, we are interfering with it in such a way that we are pushing it in all sorts of directions, and of course we cannot predict exactly how it will flip, when it will flip, but flip it will. And let me give you just a few examples, just with one basic process which we are messing up. Namely, we are introducing tremendous amount of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere: carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, some others. The global warming, whatever it will be, forget about the numbers, how many degrees Celsius, whatever, it will change what we have. And what we have is predicated on having certain things, like Gulf Stream. There would have been no Western European civilization with cathedrals and with sailing from Portugal to discover the world, quote unquote, like these people wouldn't know it when we discovered them that they are there, really. I mean, what an idiotic idea, you know. But there would not have been this quote unquote Western civilization without Gulf Stream. If you would name like single biggest invention of the 20th century, Haber-Bosch synthesis of ammonia, single most important thing for the Western civilization and Christianity or whatever you name it, Gulf Stream. Without Gulf Stream, there is no Western Europe, right? You have glaciers all the way to Marseille, really, and you are done with it, really. Now, Gulf Stream, you know, can flip. There may be no Gulf Stream. Gulf Stream may end up sort of, you know, short of Bimini, and that's it, you know, may not even reach to Massachusetts. This may happen by pushing global warming too far. We may just be extinguished. We may snuff a Gulf Stream. We've settled this continent, and we made this, you know, Canadians especially talk about this bread basket, and Americans too. All this Kansas, Nebraska, Illinois, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, all this endless grain, right? That is predicated on at least 300, 400, 500 millimeters of precipitation. That is not much. That is right on the border between grassland and desert, really. Give me 50% less precipitation which was there before and which may be there again with global warming, and you wipe out totally the essence of America. Because the only two things which we have to export today now, besides this infernal software, is Boeings and grain, really. These are the only, otherwise we buy everything from China, right? Everything is made from China, right? The gifts which we got in this sling over thing, they were all made in China. Everything is made in China, really, right? Except Boeings and grain. Now, we will be without grain, and of course, you know, Airbus is making even bigger plane than Boeing, really, so we are totally out of business, right? The only thing which we have is software. Very difficult to eat software. Very difficult to eat software, really, right? So this is a fundamental thing. What else, you know? Let's say it might be a mild global warming. Mild one. We'll get only some glaciers will melt. Let's say only Greenland. Forget about the Antarctic. This huge ice in Antarctic, 3 kilometers of ice will totally remain intact. So the ocean level will rise only 50 centimeters, only 40 centimeters. You say what? Well, Dutch will laugh. You know, Dutch have these dikes which are like 40 meters, so, you know, it's fine. You can still go and see the dirty Amsterdam. But, you know, if you have 40 centimeters more water, and if you have this surge driven by hurricane or typhoon, whatever you call it, and it goes over Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, right, which is only this much above sea level, really, then you have a problem. Then all these people want to go somewhere. Where all the people want to go when they want to go somewhere? They want to go to Toronto, really, right? Okay, so you will have the whole population of Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, or the people who already are there, you'll have them in Toronto. You know? So everything has global implication, right? As it was said yesterday, there's very, very substantial global implications. And we are doing this mindlessly, and we don't even think about it. We are misallocating. We are putting more money into computer literacy when children don't know the basic science. Children have never seen a living ant because, you know, I mean, when they live on 20 stories somewhere in Osaka or in Toronto, how can they have seen living? Maybe they've seen a cockroach, but they haven't counted the cockroaches lecture, right? So we are so totally disconnected. When was the last time, you know, when you are just simply, when you spent like 10 minutes, you know, gazing at an open, starry sky, right? People just don't do these things anymore, right? Instead, of course, you know, it's a great thing to be in front of this and look at it, you know, acquiring myopia and, you know, irradiating your head, really. I mean, what a great thing it is. It's just, you know, the most astonishing line I heard, that we are free of constraints of evolution, I heard on the first day. This is a mind-boggling line, you know. We can never be free of constraints of evolution. I mean, we co-evolve with all these other species there, and we are forever bound and forever limited by them. You know, this self-aggrandizing idea, okay, so we got rid of smallpox temporarily. It will be back, I guarantee you that. We got rid of polio, fortunately, temporarily. It will be back again. We thought we got rid of TB. Tuberculosis now is raging around, and we don't know how to get rid of it because we are, most hospitals, down to one drug which can deal with it, right? Down to one drug. 20 years ago, we had half a dozen of them, really, right? Viruses and bacteria. Oh, well, great Ontario example, right? Walkerton, Escherichia coli. Escherichia coli, this thing which is always called E. coli. That's like somebody would call somebody you know, it's Escherichia. The little bugger has a name, okay? And it's a very variable one, and it changes all the time. You can never catch up with these things. These things have a head start. They've been around for 3.8 billion years. You can never get rid of bacteria because, after all, bacteria run the life on this planet, really. So this idea, you know, that we'll somehow win this war against nature, it's a very idiotic idea because we have to go out of our way to work with nature because that's the biosphere, the only one which we have and which supports all of these things. Try this test, you know, what we could do with and what we could do without, how long we could live with or without many of these things. And of course, you know, you can do without water for a few days and without food for a week or a couple of weeks, but you could do without the so-called high-tech civilizations quite well. I'm reminding people that in early 1950s, mid-1950s, this wasn't a hellish time to be alive in North America. We were consuming half as much energy as we are consuming today, really. Since mid-1950s, the only thing which we got is about 1.5 year longevity gain. That's all what we got, really, right? We don't live any longer, really. We don't, you know, are we much happier since mid-1950s, consuming twice as much energy, having all this infernal gadget around us, right? And of course, we still don't know the basics. You know what's the most important reason why people are buying these infernal SUVs? Because they think they have a better chance or whatever. Well, it's a primitive physics. If I have a bigger car, will I be able to stop it faster than a smaller car? car? Of course not. There is an inertia, really. So if I'm running against the wall in a big car, I'll kill myself faster, of course. If I'm colliding with two big cars, it's not going to help. I cannot steer it so easily as a small car, right? You know, these people don't understand pre-kindergarten physics, right? And that's the reason why they buy it, because they feel safer in that car, really, right? Or vitamins, really, right? Vitamins are good for you. So, you know, this infantile mind, you know, so more of it, because children are really dumb in that sense, you know, they want to have more, right? They are greedy extremely, right? So this is a very infantile society. Vitamin C is good for you. The more vitamin C will be better for you. So people are, you know, taking these mega doses. All you need is about 100 milligrams. People are taking 1 gram, 1,000 milligrams, 2,000 milligrams, and you do what you do with it. You just piss it out simply. That's all what's to it, okay? So you are just simply enriching the urine of big cities by buying these mega doses, right? You know, that's what you are doing. That's what you are doing. That's what you are doing, right? This is, you know, so there is so much, you know, there are some practical gains to be had out of understanding this kindergarten science. Finally, let me end with this magical number. You are the people who are, of course, you know, totally into this double-digit returns, you know, 30% return. So if I have X dollars and I have this double-digit return, how many dollars I will have after whatever 20 years? There is a simple equation to it, right? Whatever xt equals x0 multiplied by e raised to power rt. How many of you in this room know the value of e? Down to 2 decimal numbers. 1 person, 2 persons, okay, maybe 3 people know value of e. Without e, you cannot do anything. You know, this is just about such a fundamental thing to calculate. I tell them the value of e to 2 decimal numbers. 2.718. Absolutely, to 3 decimal numbers. He knows is e, right? Without this, you cannot calculate anything which grows, yet all your people want things to grow. So go home and learn the value of e. Thank you.
Stay safe in there. TED conference is going to make an unprecedented contribution. There will be a 78 RPM version of that talk that will be available at the front desk. Thank you so much, Vaclav.